Hey everyone, welcome back to the Old Music Matters in That podcast. I'm your host Brian. And join me today, David Compton, aka, do you pronounce it Nonferrous? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, Nonferrous. Yeah.
Nonferrous. How you doing today, brother?
I'm doing good. Doing good today.
Not too bad. And I saw you sipping a cup of coffee right there not too long ago, I guess. Is that your third or fourth one today?
That's my second today.
Is it? That's all good. Hey, so I know some people tend to be big coffee drinkers too. I think I saw the place I work at, they crank out 4 or 5 just in the morning alone. So it's all good. So I guess what's been new recently?
Recently just kind of working with trying to get new album rolling forward. Got the artwork picked out, which is the first step for me, because once I get some artwork, then I'm kind of committed. And then I got a hold of a recording engineer that's going to help out this time. So now it's not just me sitting behind the computer for 20 hours a day trying to figure out how to get things sound right. Yeah. So I've got recording engineer lined up. I've got the artwork. So now it's just a matter of getting everything in.
To say the least, yeah.
So, yeah, new stuff is on the way. I can't tell you how long until I get more time to work on it.
That sounds good. Good luck on that project right there. I guess, where are you hailing from, actually? Which part of the States are you in?
Ohio.
Which part of Ohio?
Kind of outside of Mansfield, which is where the, I don't know what they call it anymore, the show at the prison. They used to call it Ink and the Clank. I can't remember what they called it last year. But yeah, it's like the Mansfield Reformatory show, big show, festival, 3 or 4 days, something like that.
Sorry, not ringing any bells.
We live like in the town next to that.
All right, that sounds cool. So I guess, Dave, I want to welcome you to my podcast right here. And the way this is going to work is I'm just going to ask you some questions, get to know you more both as the musician, but also as the individual too. So I guess first off, how many guys are in your group right now?
Currently, it's just me.
You've been doing a solo project the whole time?
Well, the first album had, well, at first it was 3 of us, then 2 of us, and then like every song that came out for that album had a different number of members. So people kind of passed through for a while. And that project actually got put to sleep, I think, in 2017. There was some conflicts in the band. So some people split off and did other things, and so did I. And years down the road, after COVID hit, I kind of stopped jamming with anybody and thought I would just, do some solo stuff on the side. And I was always told that I never finish anything I start. So instead of starting a new project, I decided to dig back up the Nonferrous project, finish that, take it all the way. And then if it made any kind of dent or if it seemed like it was taken off or it seemed like it was, or if it had a footing or something, then I would just continue there. So in the future, if the new album seems to be taking off pretty good, then I'll probably be hiring on or looking for a drummer and bass player to kind of lift up the old stuff and then play the new stuff, and then we might be going and doing some shows and some promoting that way.
All right, sounds good. You can elaborate on the story a little bit more too, but let's start with the first one right here. I guess, how did you become a musician?
It's kind of a long story. How I fell in love with music in general and then wanted to be a guitar player are kind of 2 separate stories. But the guitar player side is probably the most important. So at a young age, around the time that Use Your Illusion 2 came out, Slash was kind of my influence back then, but man, I couldn't play anything. I bought my own first guitar, and then my parents bought me a tab book, which was, I couldn't read it. I didn't know what to do with it. And, eventually I broke a string, and then in the town I lived in, there wasn't a music shop. There wasn't any way to get stuff for the guitar or amps or anything like that. So I kind of gave it up for a long time. Kind of got involved in drugs quite a bit in my teenage years, and that kind of took over most of my life. And when I finally did clean up and sober up, I looked back on things that I really wanted to accomplish, and learning how to play guitar was one of those things. So I took all the effort I could into learning, and I ended up joining a church band at first. And I'm telling you, the best crowd to learn in front of is probably a church band, because they're going to cheer for you no matter what you do. Also had to learn a lot of songs per week. So it was kind of, kind of like a drill sergeant kind of thing. Like, you got to learn this, and then you got to be able to play it in front of a crowd. And you got like 2 or 4 hours worth of practice with the group, and that's it. And you got to get like 3 or 4 new songs down every week. So a lot of learning fast at that point. But my heart's always been in metal. It's always been in metal. So eventually I ended up starting a couple small metal groups, and nothing really took off. And I ended up working a lot later, a couple years later, working a lot in order to like build my life back up. And eventually I ended up where I'm at now, where they pay me good enough where I only need the one job, and I had some time to actually, put more time and dedication into what I wanted to do. So I started an original project, I want to say 2015. And about a year later, I had another member join up who wasn't in the band very long. It was a drummer from down the road. And then eventually I got a bass player who ended up being our drummer on every track that we recorded on that album. And then he kept bringing in new members all the time to interview. At first I wasn't singing. I was just playing the guitar, writing the music. And it just got so old bringing in new people like every week that I decided that if I was going to do anything that was going to be something I could keep and be my own, that I'd probably have to pull the weight of writing the music and writing the lyrics too. And it's a good thing I did, because if we would have got, another singer in there to write the words and stuff, then I wouldn't have owned any of the songs in order to actually publish them later on, the way things ended up. So that's kind of the story of Nonferrous. That I stepped up.
Yeah.
It is local.
And congratulations on being sober. I guess, was that probably the hardest decision you had to make right there, was trying to give up all the drugs and everything too, and trying to commit yourself to music, and I guess also the church band as well?
Yeah, having a faith-based center, especially when you're first getting off of things, is probably the best support group you can have.
Yeah, absolutely too. And I guess elaborate a little bit more on Nonferrous too. So I guess first off, how did you come up with the name?
The name was actually voted name. Original name of the project was Forgotten Under the Command of Kings. And that was decided as a group decision. It was probably a little long to put on something. So Nonferrous was a suggestion by Al, the drummer, at the time, and we kind of put it up to a vote with some other people. I talked to some other people about it, and they all said that was probably a better name. So we switched over to Nonferrous name, and then about 3 months later than that, we ended up releasing the first song, which was on, I want to say, New Year's Day 2016, when we released the first song on YouTube, which was Paying the Price. And that song was kind of, I mean, it was a learning experience to record and write the songs and get a band together, get everybody on the same page, and self-produce it, and then put it up out there for the world to see. And YouTube was, the first and easiest thing I could think of to do. But I had never uploaded anything to YouTube before, so I didn't know that I needed a video to go with it at the time. I thought I could just throw a song on there. And so that New Year's night, I kind of freaked out because I was going to put it on at midnight, and I decided to do it a little early, and then I realized I didn't have a video for it. So I had to run to my studio and compile a video as fast as I possibly could to meet the midnight deadline I set for myself. So that was kind of crazy. But after that, the whole first album's idea was to take the story of Paranoid from Black Sabbath, where they just kind of threw it together real quick and used it as a filler song, and then it becomes one of the songs that everybody kind of knows, really popular songs. So we took that idea of playing a song in practice, and then if we remembered it the next week when we got together, then we would just record it, and that was it. That was all the time we ever spent on the song. And that was as raw energy as we could put into it. And it spoke kind of clearly to what Nonferrous means, which is like a pure, non-iron type metal that's not magnetic. So we were kind of writing more off the hip, not overproduced, and really not overthinking anything. So a lot of those recordings on the album are like the second time we played that song.
Oh, really? Is that the same thing with like Destroy You? Because I would say that one doesn't do a good bit.
Yeah. That was the same way. It's the second time we played it is when we hit record.
That's damn good, man. All right.
I mean, it shows what everybody was capable of right off the top, and we just accepted everything for the way it was and put it out there.
That sounds very good. And congrats on releasing your first album too. So I guess what's the newest album going to be like? So you're going to have like a story, you're just going to try to mold some sort of songs together?
I actually wrote a lot of music with, after Nonferrous kind of fell apart, I took the Forgotten Under the Command of Kings back and started a sub-project with the bass player at the time that we split up, which was Brower. He's the one with the dreadlocks on the videos. He lives like 2 hours away from where we used to practice. He would drive down every weekend just to practice with us for a couple hours. So after we kind of dissolved the Nonferrous thing, and I started going over to his place to practice, which was also a 2-hour drive for me. And then we ended up getting a couple, like the first bass player we have, the guy with the really long blonde hair on the video for Paying the Price. He ended up moving over to Mansfield, and I got a hold of him, and Mansfield's like 20-minute drive or so from here. And he said he would play the bass for the new project. So in the meantime, well, as Brower was driving 2 hours down to us when Nonferrous was, when we were doing Forgotten Under the Command of Kings work, I would drive down to Mansfield and pick up the singer and the bass player who lived together, and then drive all the way up to Gibsonburg, which would come up to about a 3-hour drive every Friday. So it was kind of returning the favor to him for, being as dedicated as he was to the stuff we were doing. But I wrote a lot of songs with him, but he wrote the music and then I wrote the words. So the new album's going to be essentially those songs that I wrote there, but with different music, which is going to be different because I wrote those songs with the intention of the music we had. So like it's kind of different to translate those to new music. So things are probably going to change. It's really not easy. The attitude of the songs are going to be different. So I might not be able to use all the stuff that I wrote. And I've been figuring that out all year. I started January trying to put something together, and I think I've written the same song 5 times now. And it's still not, it's better, but it's not quite where I want it to be yet. So I might end up just writing all new stuff. I'm still kind of balancing that. Do I want to just let that stuff lie and then start something new? Or do I want to recycle that stuff because I took the time and the effort in about a year of my life making it? And do I want to just kind of let it go? Or can I bring it into the new stuff in some way that I just don't feel like a year of my life was wasted?
Yeah, I'd say definitely write the songs, whether it's musically first, then lyrically afterwards. I mean, it's a little bit tricky too because you feel like you got it in your head, and it's like, oh, maybe if I add a little touch right here and there, maybe it will help. And unfortunately, it just gets molded in. Eventually, probably accidentally forget it too. At least that's what happens with me at some points. So I can say what you mean too. So I guess would you say that's one of the big challenges you face being an indie musician?
What's that?
I guess writing like new material in this case, or even like trying to maintain like the material you have in your head and try to translate it on paper.
I think my hardest challenge is I write something. I write a song about once a month, whether I want to or not, and it's trying to get that song molded into, is it a Nonferrous type song? Because Nonferrous is it's a kind of metal. It's got its own spirit, and not everything I write is Nonferrous music. Some of it's just I got an idea for a song and I write it, and some of it is like light rock, classic rock, and I'm like, well, that's not going to work or fit. And I've been kind of debating on whether or not to make like a sub project where all the songs I write that are not Nonferrous type songs gets put into this project, so that way I've got a place for those songs to go. Not quite sure I want to dedicate that much time to that yet, because the experience of taking the Nonferrous from what it was to what it is now, from just being some recordings from back in the day to being an album released with merch and marketing and all that work that went in between one to the other. Do I really want to go that path again with another project? Do I have the time to put into it that it would need dedicated to it?
Yeah, I see. Yeah. I think the challenges all seem to like kind of come together too, especially when you talk about marketing. In this case, whether it's like your song or even when you open up your own merch store, for instance. I guess, do you have your own merch?
Yes, we do have our own merch store. Like I said before, or I might not have said it yet, but I do that a lot. My brain goes one way, and then I'm not sure if I did or so. taken the Nonferrous thing from pretty much recordings to where it is now. I wanted to go through the steps and take this as far as I could possibly go with it. Because I was always told that I don't finish things I start, I wanted to make sure this was one thing I finished, for sure. And then take it all the way and then document everything on my way through, and then look for things that kind of fit what I was looking for with Nonferrous. So when I copyrighted the material and went to publish the material, I had to find a publisher that would be good in a situation where if I didn't continue the project after that, how long would it be out there? So the longevity of it, what would the maintenance cost of having this album out be? So I found Sounddrop as a distributor, which is not DistroKid or the other services people use, because those people charge annually to keep your stuff up. And I was like, well, what if I don't want to pay it 1 year because I got other stuff going on? Is the music going to be unavailable if I don't pay it? And with Sounddrop, you pay $1 per song to have it put on all the services. And then they take 15% of your streaming revenue as payment. And I thought, well, that is okay, because I don't expect it to do big things. So they can take the 15%, and that's fine. And then it's up there forever. And I don't have to pay anything more every year to keep it up. They've got limits, though, like other CD Baby and all those other companies. They have the option to print music on CDs. They got the option to sell digital copies right through them. The Sounddrop has those things, but you have to pay extra for those. Just the baseline is getting me on all streaming platforms. And that's what I went with, because it's easy, it's maintainable. I don't have to do anything for the life of the album to keep it up. And to me, that felt like the best move for the Nonferrous project. Because if I didn't continue it, then it would still be up. So it'd be something to look back on. And then I kind of let that kind of do its own thing for about a year with no marketing, just kind of let it go while I moved on to doing other projects like the YouTube channel, which I always wanted to make. It's just another creative outlet for me. So I'm kind of busy still doing the YouTube channel, which is Compton Shenanigans, if anybody wants to watch. Yeah, it's just me doing stuff around the house, projects, and taking you with me, doing stuff. I thought it'd be fun.
It's almost like the sitcom of David Compton. That's what I was
yeah, it's a lot harder to put together a YouTube channel and a YouTube video. It's just like releasing an album. There's a learning curve involved. There's a lot of little parts to go into the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, actually, back when I used to have my little Ecamm recorder, unfortunately, just to fill in the audience, I don't have it anymore, so we're now stuck with Skype recording. It used to be I had to export a whole bunch of files at first. You bring it all together in your editing software. You make sure it all lines up, everything too. So that was a little bit of a hassle in and of itself. At least with Skype here, it's a little bit easier. Just export it, then you just plug and play afterwards. So there's not too much freedom with it, but it's at least somewhat easier.
Isn't it great how good phones are nowadays, too?
Actually, this is on my computer, but I think yours is on the phone. So
Yeah, well, okay. Yeah, when I started the YouTube channel, I couldn't do anything on my phone. I had an older phone, and so I could record on it, but I couldn't do anything else with it. Come to find out, this phone I'm using now that I've used for probably about a year now. I mean, I got video editors on it. I can record on it, edit, post videos, manage the channel. And unfortunately, it's Android. And back in the day, Apple was the product to use for recording sound, and they still are. So like I can't do a whole lot of the audio recording on it because it's an Android. It's got like something built into it in a way that is just not friendly to audio recording, like the old iPhones used to be. I can't remember if they are anymore or not, but they used to be really good. In fact, I think I want to think Now Is Never was recorded on an iPhone.
was it? I would say, yeah, I definitely noticed some of the audio differences between like each song as I was going through because I was checking out your Spotify before we hopped on here. So I did notice how some of the audio was slightly different here and there too. I just didn't know if it was because it was different years and then it just put all together once you got on Spotify.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Now Never was recorded on an iPhone, the whole thing, and I think, yeah. So Paying the Price was done on Audacity, which is not an audio mixing DAW program. It's more of an audio recording and editing program. So it was make an edit, listen back to it, make an edit, listen back to it, recording on headphones. I didn't have any equipment at the time. And then the iPhone was another idea because that one, of course, that recording is kind of poor. And then Now Is Never turned out a little bit better. And then we kind of upgraded to using Reaper and an actual DAW for one, and using interfaces in order to get the sound in. And we started that on Machine One. And just kind of, as after Machine One and then the rest of the songs on the album, those were all done in Reaper. And the workflow was just so much easier and so much. I'm not going to say the quality was the greatest because it is, every song's got its own attitude, and every song was mixed with me learning something new on mixing the entire time. So every song kind of progressed through the album as me learning new stuff is, and you would think you would go back to like the first one and redo everything to match the quality of the last one you did, but I mean, that's not really showing the growth. And I think that's important, especially starting out, to show, where you started at to where you ended up at. I think it's important to show that. Because if you put out like this, polished product only, and somebody who's just starting out starts listening to you, how much of an influence are you, or how much of an inspiration are you if your work is like 10 times better than they can do? So we leave the earlier work the way it was because somebody just starting out might sound like that. And it just means you got more, you can grow from there.
Absolutely, too. It seems like it was either keeping it simple or like even if the old ways got the job done, it was almost like just stick with that in a way rather than like just trying to replace it with something new. So I can see why it's like it's almost like that Southern Horton style would be like everything's got a purpose. You just got to figure out how to make it work, that sort of thing, too. So not sure if that's a good analogy, but I think you get the idea, too. So. But I guess speaking of technology and gear, I guess what sort of gear do you use? And I guess do you utilize all the guitars hanging on the wall behind you?
Well, Let's see which ones you can see.
I can tell you a good bit. I don't know how much it's going to get when editing comes around, too. So it ought to be interesting. So I guess just work your way down the line.
All right. So how I met Al, who's the drummer for Nonferrous, who is currently the bass player for Terra Umbra right now. So if you get a chance to check those guys out, they got some videos up. You can see him. He'll have his back to the crowd. He doesn't do well in front of crowds, which is part of the reason why we didn't book shows. I met him through buying that bass that's on the wall over there. You can barely see it. It's a 5-string. Can't remember the brand name. LTD, I guess. I don't know if that's Samick or I don't know what brand that is, honestly. And then the first guitar that I got when I started up taking this seriously would be the red one here with the strap on it. I don't know the names of guitars all that well. Like, I know Gibson and Fender, and I don't own any of those. I just buy whatever I can afford, a couple $100 here or there, and make the best out of it.
If it sounds good, then we'll buy it. That sort of thing too. Yeah.
Yeah. The guitar that was used exclusively on all the Nonferrous work is the Samick behind me with the single pickup in it. The red one. It's the one hanging on the other red guitar plaque, which I have a video coming out sometime this year on YouTube about me making those. Next down the line would be the classical guitar, which I haven't put on any recordings yet, but I do like playing classical guitar. It's a challenge, so I like doing it. The first bass I ever bought would be the Blue Gumby back there, and I bought that in 1998, and it's nearly unplayable. It needs a new neck, but finding something, it's like a 5-bolt neck or something like that. It's a weird configuration. It kind of looked, some guitar parts on it, I bought it used for $100 back in '98. I might put something together on the YouTube channel of me making a new neck for it. I got enough woodworking stuff that I should be able to make one. And then that one will get probably revitalized and put on some recordings because it sounds awesome. It's nearly impossible to play, and the intonation's like not there. And the Ibanez with the Floyd Rose on it actually has an interesting story to it, which I'll get to here in a little bit. And then the one far over, if you can or can't see it, it's actually it's a cheapie. It's kind of like a PRS copy, Paul Reed Smith.
It could be a Chinese ripoff. That's our one.
Yeah. Well, this one supposedly has a story with it too. So we'll start with that story since it's shorter. Me and my wife took a trip down to Florida just to see how far south we could drive. So we ended up in the Florida Keys. And on the way back, we ended up going through Nashville. And I told her, I said, I really want a guitar from Nashville because I don't know when I'll ever be back. And Nashville's always been said to be, the country music center or whatever. It should be easy to find a guitar in Nashville, essentially. So we parked outside of this used and new music store and waited until it opened because there's a time difference. And we got there kind of an hour early and didn't realize the time difference. So we kind of sat there and waited for it to open. It opened. I saw that. I loved it. But I wanted to see what else Nashville had. So we went to every guitar store from one end of Nashville to the other. And ended up going all the way back to that used one to buy that guitar. And that's actually made by a local manufacturer in Nashville. So it's a Nashville guitar from Nashville, made in Nashville.
USA.
Yeah, that's what the labels are painted on it. That's what the label says. So
That's good.
yeah, it may be an import with their name on it, or whatever. But it's a Nashville guitar from Nashville. The Ibanez has an interesting story. So after Forgotten Under the Command of Kings kind of fell apart, I didn't do anything for about a year, and then I just kind of remembered an old friend from a long time ago, just randomly popped in my head. So I got a hold of him, and we just started talking and then started hanging out. And turns out he had a band about the same time that Nonferrous was going on. And like through the years, almost all the members passed away. So he wasn't currently playing with anybody. So we got together and we started kind of jamming the old stuff. And the guitar player for the band he was in, that's his old guitar. And he saved it, the guy that still survived. He saved it for me. So if he ever found me or got a hold of me again, because he knew that the Ibanez was kind of like my dream guitar that I talked about a lot back in the day. So he actually saved it for me. And then I took it back and kind of rebuilt it. It was not in the greatest shape. I guess it was stored under a trailer for a couple years. But yeah, tore it apart, gave it a paint job, new neck. Floyd Rose is installed on it, which I regret greatly. I didn't realize how complicated Floyd Roses were on changing strings or keeping everything in tune. Occasionally I'll forget it's a Floyd Rose, and I'll turn that knob to tune it, and I'll snap the string right off there at the clamp. I've done that quite a bit.
Oh God, that must have been terrible.
It's not like anything else I got. It's got an entirely different setup than anything else. So it was a learning curve.
Yeah, and you live and learn, as they would say too. So that's just a story.
What you don't see on the far wall is a 7-string guitar, which I'm gonna be using a little bit. I think it's the same brand, honestly, as the 5-string bass. So I'm gonna be using those a little bit on the new recordings. I have some songs written specifically for the drop B tuning. I'm gonna try to keep the guitars more standard drop D tuning for the new album. Almost every one of them on the Not This Time album is drop B or drop B flat, which was an awful lot to ask for a 6-string guitar to do. Pretty low, got to get some heavy gauge strings on it, and so I'm going to bring them all back up to standard drop D, and then if I'm going to do anything for low frequency work, it's going to be on the 5-string and 7-string guitar and standard tuning. More than likely, I think that's where I feel more comfortable playing at, and I think the songs might sound better if the strings can stay in tune through the whole song. Maybe.
Was they at those instances where it all of a sudden started becoming untuned when you guys are actually recording a song?
It happened. Like you can hear it if you're listening close enough. You can hear things kind of falling out of phase as the song goes forward. It's like, yeah, but you gotta listen really close though. It happens though.
Hey, like we said, live and learn, that sort of thing too. So that's all good. It's funny we mentioned about Nashville too, because last year me and my parents had actually gone in there, and that was the first time I had been there. But that was also the first time I got COVID after coming home. So it's kind of a little bit of a bummer. And I would say I had really a lot of fun on Broadway too. Did you guys do a lot of bar hopping on Broadway?
No, we did drive down it. Nashville's not the kind of city you think it is. Like, did you notice that?
I guess, what do you mean?
Well, you would you would think the way it's kind of portrayed on the television and stuff is that you got people on the corner playing music, you got people on the streets playing music, and yeah, I mean, down Broadway you've got bars and there's music in the bars and there's people playing in there, but like the majority of the town is kind of ran down. At least when we went.
I guess when did you go? Because last year it seemed okay. I mean, there was some construction like here and there, but I mean, it seemed like they were trying to at least revitalize it. And I guess what year did you go?
Oh, I would have to say it was probably 2019.
Yeah, I would say it was a little bit different because I remember 2022 it looked pretty good from what I saw. So I might have not had a keen eye for it, to be honest, but it seemed to be doing well. So
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's to me it kind of, well, we were stuck in a hotel too by the airport, and that
doesn't really
hotel
help.
is questionable, I would say, at best. And there, I guess every town's got its good and bad parts, and we just ended up kind of stuck in a bad part to stay for a while, and then this was anticipating more people out playing music, I guess. Like, but nothing's ever the same that you see on TV. It's always different in real life. But I mean, how was that supposed to happen?
Well, they're never going to show you the bad parts on TV, so it's almost like, what do you expect? So,
Right.
Yeah. Oh, well. But I guess getting into COVID a little bit, I guess, how bad did COVID impact you and your family, and I guess also with Nonferrous and your music?
Well, if it wasn't for COVID, Nonferrous probably wouldn't have happened. The album-wise, at least, because I was bouncing around from music project to music project up until COVID hit. And then when it hit, I finally kind of was stuck home and had to focus on me. And if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't have dug it back out and said, let's finish something we started. I probably would still be jamming with different people all the time, just trying to move on from whatever it was. So yeah, if it wasn't for COVID and me being stuck here, I probably wouldn't have dug it back out, dusted it off, and then tried to take it all the way. So it was more of a blessing. And COVID didn't affect our family at all. I think my wife got it, but she didn't. She was tired for a couple of days, but other than that, she was all right. But nobody else in my family apparently got it, as far as I can tell. And I didn't get it, as far as I know.
That's good, yeah. Yeah, that's very good. I would say it really sucks, too, because when I got it, too, I was trying to just hop my drum set, try to, like, sweat it out, and I couldn't even get through, like, one song. I mean, I was just that tired, to be honest. So I would say it definitely does suck, too, when they had to put you on these, like, pills, Paxlovid, I think that's how you pronounce it. So
yeah,
it's one of those things, too. It doesn't really, like, cure it, to say. It's more just, like, helping the immune system out, in a way. Not very good tasting ones. I know they at least try to make medicine taste good these days, at least. So not the best thing, but it was something. So I would just say that I almost went 3 years without getting COVID. So that's a nice little joking factor. But
yeah, we'll probably end up with we'll probably end up with COVID again, or another form of COVID down the road. Like, I mean, it's like the most interesting time in a way, when COVID hit, because you've got this, the Walking Dead on AMC, and there's a virus goes around, everybody gets infected. Where it's like COVID was a virus, everybody got infected, and it's like, well, if the zombie one existed and got out, how well would our country adapt to, a pandemic happening and getting out? And it was a good kind of snapshot on how our country would act in a situation like that. Even though it wasn't the zombie thing, it was still a virus that got out. And then, how did our country to local people like react to something like that? It was kind of interesting to watch. We as a country really would have failed, I think. And we'd all be zombies, right?
We'd be living the Walking Dead sort of scenario. So, yeah. Oh God.
Yeah, I think it start like, I don't necessarily agree with the lockdowns. I think that was kind of overreach. I honestly don't know if the death numbers were doctored or not. I guess that's conspiracy theory. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. Locally, though, it just didn't seem to affect anybody locally. And from what I hear, a lot of people say the same things. So I don't know if the media has a tendency to get ratings, because that's kind of their job. Maybe they were blowing things out of proportion just to get the rating.
You wouldn't be lying. I would believe it too. So even if that was a conspiracy theory, so
that's kind of why I really don't. I mean, I don't really have a firm opinion on whether or not our next president should be Trump or not. I do think that Trump might do a better job economically for us, like he did the first time. But then again, that's up to, there's three branches of government. He's not the only one that's there. So he's got to get it through the other two branches for it to make sense and actually happen. So he's not like a dictator, and he's not going to, make things happen if he's not supported by the other branches of government. So, yeah. But I'm not sure if I really want him back in office, because he's kind of the only reason some news agencies still exist, because that's all they ever reported on was him. And that just gives them more fuel to stay in business longer. And I don't think that's fair. I know he doesn't care, but, he did anything at all, and it was a story on the news forever. Anything he ever did, and it was Trump this and Trump that. And then when he's not president, they're still reporting Trump this and Trump that, everything. It's like, I don't know if I want him in office to keep them in business or not.
You'd be right.
Somebody that's a little less interesting. Maybe.
I don't know. It's a little too confusing, to be honest. I'd say there's not really any good ones you can pick from. You got two guys who are going to be 80 and probably slipping at this point, probably knocking on heaven's door pretty soon, to be honest. So, what do you expect?
Whoever we get in office, let's just hope it's not who we got now. Let's just move on from that.
Debatable, but we'll have to see what happens. But let's not get into politics. We'll see what happens when we cross that bridge. Otherwise, you're welcome to move up to Canada with me if you want to try to get away from the drama afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear there's a lot of drama in Canada, too.
Maybe, something like that. I'm not too sure. But I know. I think I was seeing, Jackie K. She was, posting some stuff on Instagram, here and there, too. But I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure about the drama, too. So how to get in touch with Jackie? Shout out to Jackie K, by the way, and her music.
Not super familiar, no. Yeah, well, as part of the marketing part of Nonferrous was to kind of network on Facebook as much as possible, and that started this year, and that kind of turned into something entirely different. Instead of just networking with bands, I feel that it's a follow for follow thing. So I'll follow a band and they follow me back. But I want to make sure 100% that I listen to the things they have, listen to their music. And that kind of blew up over the summer. So I'm still trying to play catch up with all the music I have dedicated myself to listening to. And part of the way that I can ensure that I listen to the music that they release is that I keep a list, handwritten list of every band that follows Nonferrous. And I write down, where their music's at. And if they're on Spotify, then I make sure I get them on a playlist, and I make sure that I share the playlist, then that also guarantees that I listen to their stuff. But there's been about 1,000 bands in the last couple months, so I'm kind of falling a little bit behind on that.
Is this all the bands in that band together group that Christina and Greg put together?
Yeah. I'm not going to say all of them. I've kind of branched out from that too, trying to connect with bands, but I think a majority of them are from the band together group. And they all have like really awesome music. Like I am blown away at the amount of talent that is out there.
Absolutely too. I was the same way when I enjoyed it as well, and also interviewed a good number of people already from there too. So yeah, I got the music out there. We got to spread the word, or spread the gospel, as I like to say, the indie gospel, who we want to call it that too. Sounds like an idea for a T-shirt, actually. So I guess who would you consider has been like a big influence on your music too? Because I guess, was your family really big into music? Like, did your dad and mom do anything?
No, actually, it was, well, I mean, I think back in the 90s, my cousin and my brother had started kind of a rap group, and that, that's not necessarily an influence, but my cousin kind of took it further after that. And that was really the only musical influences I had around me in the family. So I kind of had to carve my own path. Biggest influencers for the time of Nonferrous would probably have to be Black Sabbath in the song Paranoid, which was kind of based on how we did everything at the time. Now the biggest influencers on what I'm going to write is probably the indie music community, because I mean, there's just so much heart and so much music that's out there, and not all of it's the greatest recording. So that's, I still love it. I still love everybody that's making it, but it kind of drops the bar a little bit for me to be more comfortable releasing something that is personal, seeing that they release things that are personal. So right now, they're probably the biggest influence on the new album, I would say.
So I guess, so how would you describe like your sort of music too? It's like a mixture of metal. I know we kind of use it like Black Sabbath as like big influence too. Was it just Black Sabbath more like down tuned and everything too?
Yeah, the down tuning thing was kind of, it started out with drop D, and then the suggestion to drop lower just came with every song, and just eventually we dropped as low as the guitar could go. And
how low can you go? That's our
like as low as it would stay in tune, and then that was kind of, and I wanted to write songs that were kind of spoke to things that I'd always thought was like really metal. How occasionally a meme will come out and like, that's the most metal thing I've ever seen or heard or something like that. Kind of wanted to write in that way back then. So, interesting story behind a couple of the songs. The Now is Never song, I actually worked for a company, and okay, so essentially this company had a farm, and the farm was a horse farm, and occasionally the horses will get injured in such a way where the horses have to be put down. And what they do with the horses is they compost them. Because what else are you going to do with them? I mean, you don't bury horses. You don't bury livestock. You got to do something with them after they pass away. So this, company, composted horses. And my job that day was to spread the compost from the other end of the pile, and then if there was any big bones left over, my job was to pick those out of the field before they planted it for grass and pasture for the other horses to move into. So as I'm sitting there picking up all these bones, all these horses are watching. And I just had this thought, like, this might be your friend. This might be somebody you knew. This is kind of the most metal thing I've ever done. Crazy. Think about. So that whole song was kind of written on the, if it was people instead of horses, that song was written kind of about that experience. That was crazy.
This was the Now Is Never?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Actually, it's kind of similar to how, I don't know how far in death metal you technically go, but do you know one of the bands called Cattle Decapitation?
Yes.
I would say theirs is like, they put humans in animals' places where they're probably getting, like, say, animal tested, for instance. You know how, like, mice would always get tested on, like, this and that. It's kind of like that. They probably mix it around a little bit, too. So I think, like, that would be right up Cattle Decapitation's alley, to be honest. So.
Yeah, it kind of sounded like it.
Oof.
But yeah, I mean, the songs, they're personal in some spots, and then they're kind of extra outside of myself in other spots. Like the War Dead was, a place that we visited that had a monument to the War Dead, and I thought, well, that would make a great song, really. So we kind of wrote that one around that place, which is a monument to people that died in wars, and they have just big, thick books of names of all the people that died in all the wars they tracked down, and like that would make a good name of a song. War Dead. Kind of simple, straight to the point. So we actually, War Dead was actually the last song that we made before we split up. And I'm probably going to be making a music video for it before I start dedicating a lot of time to the new album, because I think it's one of the only ones I don't have a video for on YouTube.
I'll say you could probably pay tribute to the veterans on Veterans Day if you want to try to release it then.
I have to go back through and make sure it's not sending the wrong message to veterans. So.
Yeah, you gotta look back at the lyrics.
Yeah, that might be.
That'd be a smart way to do it. So yeah, that's pretty good.
Well, I'm pretty sure the song talks about how you're going to be a sacrifice, and you're just being a sacrifice for a bigger country that doesn't care about you. Pretty sure that's what that song's about. I'll have to go back and listen to it. It's been a while since I wrote it. Like 2017, so we're talking like 6 years ago. But I mean, the album, everything being written back then, but the album did come out in 2022. So it's not, the songs are kind of older than the album is in a way, but the copyright still says like 2017. So that's what year it says on Spotify. But I mean, technically it came out 2 years ago. It'll be 2 years this February.
All right, sounds good. I guess speaking of your lyrical content, I guess, do you kind of base it based off like inspiration that you see whenever you visit certain things, let alone work too? So, or do you try to like
anything I experience? Like some of the names of the songs on the new album are based on like themes based on the name. So like the new album is going to be called Forgotten Under the Communicate. And a couple of names of the songs, like Peasant's Widow is the name of the song, and it's probably got the most work into it so far. So it's probably going to be a single. And it's kind of on the same page as War Dead, where you're stuck underneath the thumb of some higher power you can't get out of, and then you're kind of used and abused there, and that's kind of what that song's about. It goes deeper a little bit on that one, where you love somebody, and then somebody in authority who you can't fight back against ends up using them and taking them away from you, and they end up dying for no reason. And then, how do you get revenge from that? Kind of what that song's about. That's been a hard one to write because I want it to kind of be present and then also in the like 1600s at the same time. So it's kind of been a hard thing to put together to get it to feel like it's in both. And that song's been written. That's the one that's been written like 5 times so far, and it's still not quite where I think I want it to be. But my mixing engineer assures me that if I send him everything I have, he'll figure out how to make it work. So we will find out.
To be determined. That sort of thing, yeah. So that'd be interesting. I can't wait for it to come out too. I would say that was probably the most metal thing, the metal story I've ever heard, to be honest, too, because I think if I was in your shoes, I'd probably looking at them, be like looking at you then, and just looking down, be like, oh God, that sort of thing. Yeah. The horses are looking at you, and you're just looking at this pile of, you can't call it manure now it's just compost. So, I mean, that's how we always used it, was just manure. Just put that as compost down whenever spring always came around for the fresh new season too. So now I think,
like if you put like chicken and other things in your compost pile, some of those bones don't dissolve in the time, So it's the same thing with horses. It's just a lot bigger bone. I love horses, but it wasn't my job to do anything with the horses. My job was just to maintain the farm.
Yeah.
So I mow the grass, clean up the compost that was spread the compost, just basic maintenance, maintaining fences. I was kind of like just a hand. I didn't really do a lot with the horses. But that was, the most metal thing I think I've ever done in a job.
That, and I think people, when you see this video, let us know in the comments if that's the most metal story you ever heard in your whole life. So that's all.
As a personal experience, I was like, man, that's got to be. But yeah, on the new album, hopefully, I said this last year, hopefully it's going to be out sometime in the middle of next year is what I'm hoping. But what I want to do this time is, instead of putting the album out and then doing everything after the fact, I'd like to do the opposite of that. Like, have the album done, get all the work for the album done, get everything updated, and then kind of put it out as here it comes, and then there it is. So then as soon as there it is, the only thing I got left to do is maybe tour for it and spread the word. That's the way I'd like to do this new one, and I'll probably end up hiring on a bass player and a drummer and going on tour next year is the hope. Either next year or the year after. Like, there's a lot of pressure on social media to like keep releasing things because it kind of gives you that endorphin boost when you get reactions to things that you make. But it's not good to get caught up in that because you might not put a lot of effort in something you release. And I feel pressured slightly to put out new stuff to see if it does better than the old stuff. But at the same time, it's like, I really want to put everything I have into getting the next Nonferrous album out the way I want it. And that means more to me than, if it's got to be 2 or 3 more years, then it's got to be 2 or 3 more years. I'll let the project speak for itself. If it seems like it's going quick, it'll go quick, and then it'll have slow spots, and it'll have quick spots and slow spots. And I've kind of been debating whether or not to do the full album or to do singles or to do an EP. Like, I'm still kind of weighing that option on, I have enough songs written to maybe do, a full album for sure, or 2 EPs, or singles forever, maybe. But I'm pretty sure I'm leaning towards the album part of it, but still kind of juggling it around. Well, like I said, I bought the artwork for the album already, so I'm committed to actually finishing it. is the way I'm looking at it. And I got a recording engineer, so I'm definitely, as much as I can afford to pay him, that's the direction we're gonna go. So that way it's not just, it's more of me playing than it is me playing and then also having to do all the recording and the engineering after the fact.
I see. Actually, who did the artwork for the first album? It's like got the little 3 hooded ghosts kind of walking through there.
Yeah, that was well, I know it's got Black Moon in it. And see, the way that I found that artist was I was kind of looking at, how graphically to represent Nonferrous. And I ran across the website, which there's a link to the website on our website, which is you can find that on our Facebook page. So I got a hold of the artist and said, I kind of want something with 3, and I kind of want the original artwork is something that I drew, and then I handed that over, and then she digitized it and then put it out. But essentially, it's something that I drew, and then she made the whole thing out of it. And yeah, so I bought that artwork, and then like a month later, we all separated and went our own way. And I was already preparing to get an album done and released when all that happened. So that was another reason why I kind of like recycled the project and put it back out, was because I'd invested all this into it, and then I just kind of let it go. So yeah, so she's given credit for the artwork on the website. And yes, we have the store, and let's move on to that real quick so I don't forget to say something.
Sure.
So in the process of taking the songs to as far as I can possibly take the release, I also looked into merchandise and what every band's got to have some merch, right? So I looked into all the online stores, Shopify, and all that, and I'm like, I don't really want something that I got to pay every month to maintain. Again, I didn't know if anything was ever going to happen with the album, if I was going to continue it or not. So I wanted something that was really easy to maintain and didn't cost a whole lot. So I ended up going through. So for printing shirts and sweatshirts and posters, and maybe sometime coffee mug, I'm going through Canva, which is an art design program, and I use those. I pay for that service because I use it a lot for the YouTube and the YouTube thumbnails and any other kind of graphic art that I feel like doing. I think I recently did a logo for Killy Colette, and I use that program for it. Because, the turnaround on stuff on that program is just fast. I love it. There's not a whole lot you can't do graphically with it. And you can also print straight from whatever your idea is, straight to anything you want. The problem is it's not cheap to print it. And, so shirts cost me $20 to print. And then the store I ended up going through was Euclid, I think it is. They're advertised everywhere. To have an online store through them, and if you only have like 5 items or so, it doesn't cost you anything to maintain the store. If you want anything more than 5 items, then it costs you. If you want advertising through Facebook, it costs you. If you want, but for basic maintenance, it's if you only have a couple items to sell and you have a way to print them out and get them out to people, it's a good online portal kind of store. It has its own website built in, and then you can integrate it to your website. So like if you go to Nonferrous website, on the front page, you'll find, the integration of the merch store on the website, and then you can go to the merch store itself. It's the same thing. But like it costs you, money for credit card processing. It costs you for taxes you have to take out, anticipate those, so I mean, there's a lot of added cost to having an online store, but there's no initial upfront cost to holding a big inventory of stuff. So if somebody orders a shirt, I can forward that order to Canva, have it printed somewhere local to them, so a local print shop gets the business too. And then Canva also plants a tree for everything that gets printed. So they are environmentally mindful, and I like what they do, and their work is nice. As I currently have on one of our shirts. You probably can't see it, but
That's pretty cool. I didn't know that about Canva. I've always heard about it, but I kind of got a Teespring little project works, and it works right now too. So hoping to open the store soon, and I guess see what happens too. So
yeah,
I'll totally get shirt.
Yeah, I think I pay because I use it for a lot of things. So like it just happened that they do printing and shipping too, and then I pay for the full service, which is only like under $15 a month. But I got to use it for the YouTube channel, pretty much every other day. I use it for the Spotify playlist graphics, so I use it once a week for that for sure. I mean, I use it enough to, justify the cost. And because I pay for the premium membership, I also get free shipping on anything I want printed. So I can forward that to my customers too. I don't make a whole lot off the shirts. I make like a couple dollars, maybe, off of each shirt that gets printed, after you cover the cost and the taxes and the processing fees. But that was, it was a thing to learn. How do you online build a store, and then how do you get your products from them ordering it to their door. That was a whole learning process. And I had friends of mine, order things so that I can work through the process and make sure there's no hiccups. That way, if anybody out there orders stuff, I already know the process and I know what to expect, and I know how to handle issues if issues occur. The only thing I don't like about Canva currently is that they won't ship anything outside of the U.S. For that, I'd have to probably handle it in-house. And I've been talking to a print shop down the road from me. They said that they can do it initially, and then when I sent them a copy of the print, they're like, well, there's transparency layers in the print that won't translate, and there's this and there's that. I was like, well, I don't want to change the design just for that. Because with Canva, you can print whatever you create, you can print. So, like, I don't know if you probably can. So this is what shirt printed. And it's been through about 100 washes already.
Badass.
I wear it to just about every show we go to let people know who I am, But yeah, it's. I'm not saying everybody's gonna be the same, because I don't know what local print shops have for inventory that they print off. But I know that when I make orders through Ohio, it goes to a local print shop in Ohio before it gets shipped to me, or somebody else that orders it. I'm guessing it's going to be in their state if we ship it to a different state. I haven't gotten to do any. No one's really bought anything yet, outside of me doing promotion.
Yeah, it's a long working process too, and gotta think over your marketing strategy too. So, wish you best luck there, mate. So, love to see what happens, but maybe 2024 we'll be the turnaround point, I guess. What's your goals and plans for the rest of this year in 2024?
Well, I'm finishing up season 2 of the YouTube channel. I think I got 4 more videos to make for that. And those hopefully will be done by the end of this month. And then December, I'm probably taking most of that month off of doing anything at all because Christmas is coming up and there's other things around the house to get done before wintertime sets in. So I'll probably end up doing nothing in December except for things I got to do around the house. Like for the rest of this year, other than some playlists getting out and some shout outs going out to all the amazing bands that follow us, probably not going to do a whole lot of work for the rest of the year besides getting the YouTube channel finished up for the year. Next year's goal is to do the YouTube channel more in real time instead of trying to film everything through the summer when the weather's nice and then releasing the videos throughout the year. I'm going to try to do more projects that are in real time. So I'll be kind of off the YouTube channel work until about August next year. And the hope is to dedicate all that time to the next Nonferrous album. But I'm hoping after the YouTube channel gets wrapped up that I can start right away on the War Dead video and get that released hopefully before the first of the year. But I doubt it. It just depends on how fast the workflow goes by the time I start working on it. So, and you can only hope.
We'll see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah. The problem with being your own boss and setting your own schedule is that sometimes you're like, yeah, I can wait.
Yeah, we get lazy.
It can get pushed back a couple of weeks because something happens, or you're your own boss, so you're also your own supervisor, and I come up with goal sheets and weekly goals and things to kind of keep things moving forward. And then some weeks it works out, and some weeks things get pushed back. So I mean, life gets in the way sometimes. I work, full-time job, and then I also work on the weekends with my wife. So
I was gonna say, yeah, we gotta balance the schedule out too, but I was gonna say we micromanage in a certain way too when you think about it. So maybe not the right word, but I mean we just do it all.
Probably about 4 hours. 4 hours, 4 days a week to work on anything that's not work related. Yeah, 4 hours, 4 times a week to work on YouTube stuff or Nonferrous stuff. And I can't be on Facebook 24/7 as much as I want to be. And as much bands that follow me, I mean, I try to be as cool to as many as I possibly can in the time that I have, but not all the time does Facebook show me anything we do. Some days they just show me suggestions for more people to follow. And I can't see anything people do unless I go to their specific sites. And at this point, I'm probably closer to 1,000 bands that I follow and that follow me back. I want to make sure everybody gets heard as much as possible, but at the same time, I can only do so much with the time I got. I got other stuff I got to do too. I got to do me. The YouTube channel is a goal that I set for myself, and that's another creative outlet for me that's not Nonferrous based. Eventually, I'd love to do a second project that is not Nonferrous based music, just so everything else that I write gets published too. But that's down the road, and we will see. The YouTube channel is kind of the focus right now until it gets wrapped up. And being my own boss, some things don't work out. So I planned on having the YouTube channel wrapped up by August, and here it is November.
Okay, that's all good. Yeah, I was gonna say the bug changed on you, as well as the lighting too. Now you get the rainbow sort of look now. You got them all yellow and everything.
Oh,
I thought that was one of your lightings. I mean, I'm looking at it too, thinking oh man, the light changed. So I mean, yeah, it starts getting evening now. I mean, 5 o'clock is going to be dark outside pretty soon.
Yeah, the sun is starting to go down a little bit. It gets dark. Well, I guess time change did just happen last
Yeah, it
night.
just happened last night.
Yeah. I thought I was going to have a hard time getting up today.
Yeah.
I live on third shift, so like I never sleep at night. So sleeping during the day, I try to keep a schedule where I sleep from like 9 to 3 every day. That doesn't always work. Sometimes I got things I got to do during the day, and sometimes I go a couple days without sleep. The insomnia kicks in, and then I got like the weekend off, right? Besides working with my wife, but get home at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning for work, and then I can't sleep till the sun comes up because that's just the way I'm programmed.
But even then, we're nocturnal in a way. We want to stay up later, that sort of thing too. I mean, I'm going to stay up past midnight and 1. So
I had first shift for a while, and then the insomnia would kick in. And I wouldn't sleep at all. And I get better ideas at night anyway than I do during any other time. Occasionally I'll be at work and just a song will pop in my head, a rhythm will pop in my head, or an entire song will pop in my head, and then I'll try to remember it on the way home and try to put it in as soon as I can. And if it's important enough, I'll remember it. And if it's not, then I'll not.
blaming on short-term memory loss.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how the whole album is going to be written, is if I can remember when I get home from work. It's going to be, and then we'll see. This album is going to be treated a little different too. Most of the recordings on the first album were more live take. We were able to, the drums, especially later on, the drums were MIDI fed drums. So it was kind of a mix between an electric drum set and the MIDI from the electric drum set was the drum side, and then the bass got recorded and the guitar got recorded like all at the same time through their own separate channels, all direct in. So we didn't have to worry about mics or anything. And then I come in later and put in the vocals, and then pretty much make a YouTube video real quick and then throw it out as fast as I can. This time though, I'm actually recording to a click track, which is different for me. I always feel like I have my own sense of timing. And I don't know if I like it, but I mean, I've noticed that some of my stumbles this year has been, I record a part and then a couple months later I come back to it to put another instrument on, and then I can't quite find the rhythm I had a couple months back. And the timing becomes an issue. So maybe the click track's going to solve all that. Maybe it's going to make things move forward a lot faster. Maybe.
I know I talk about other musicians. I know I talk about doing like click tracks and everything too before you like go into a studio too, because I think it helps with like setting time and everything too. And then that pretty much sets up the whole structure of your song. So
yeah, that's the thing too. If you want something in the song to go kind of soft and then explosive, the timing has to be right. Because if you're off just by a couple microseconds, one way or the other, that big explosion thing you're wanting to happen just doesn't have the same effect. So, and there's a lot in music where timing is more important than what you play. Like the format of a song and the dynamics of a song are just as important as what you put in musically to a song. Those little moments of silence, or those little moments of like really soft sounding thing in the background that gets a chance to shine later on in the song. Those are the things that make a song really stand out to me. And that's what I'd like to incorporate some of that into the new album. Some more dynamic music where it's not chugging a riff through the whole thing and screaming through the whole thing. Let's tear this song apart. Let's kind of make it something to remember. Would be interesting. Not just this riff's cool. Let's play this over and over. That's kind of well, with the recording kind of schedule we had with the first album, that's really all we had time to work with.
that would be deathcore actually.
Yeah. trying to stay out of being labeled, I hope. I don't even know what we are. I just consider ourselves metal. You know, and we might write a song that's more deathcore. We might write a song that's more punk related. You know, it kind of depends on what the song wants. You know, because I like recording things and then coming back and saying, is this what the song wants?
Absolutely. I mean, I definitely would not label you deathcore, to be honest, because I mean, I went through a phase listening to just pretty much strictly more deathcore bands, if anything, too. So you're not that, so it's all good. So I mean, at this point, I would just say it's just metal,
Yeah,
baby, that sort of thing.
it's just like I can't keep track of all these things. I got a guy at work with that I went to school with, and we talk about music quite a bit, and he's always saying, well, it's this type of band, or I'll tell him to check a band out, and he'll be like, well, it's this type of music. Like, yeah, but it's still music. Like, I can't keep track of how many subgenres there are. Like, I just can't. Might be, you know, the fact that I'm getting older. Like, I can't keep up with things the way they are. You know, when I grew up, there was rock and metal and rap, blues, jazz. Cool. There was a lot back then. Now you got subgenres of all those. Yeah, if it's jazz, it's jazz, man. If it's metal, it's metal. If it's rock, it's rock. If it's blues, it can be both rock and blues, because I guess they both borrow from the same thing.
Something like that, too. I can see why. All right. So, Dave, we're almost out of time right here, but we're actually down to quite a couple last questions right here. But I guess, first off, what sort of advice would you give to other musicians in the community? And then we'll jump to some fun questions afterwards.
Best advice is to stick with it, and just make yourself, you know, available as much as you can. Like, I took a marketing class in college way back in the day, and they said that, you know, if you want to make an impression on somebody, generally speaking, you have to be in front of their face about 100 times before they're going to recognize your brand. So if you think about that, like, you've got to be, I mean, if you think about radio and advertisements and the artists that are doing really well, you see them everywhere. You hear them everywhere. You know, that's not a coincidence. That's how they get recognized, how they get known. You got to make yourself able to be seen and heard everywhere as much as you possibly can. That's the best advice I give you. If you want success in what you create, you have to be everywhere you can be. Like, it might seem odd, but maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to buy a billboard in a town that's not yours. You know, if you really want to be seen and heard, you got to be seen a lot. And you got to be available on as many things as people use to be heard on. You know, it's all about building a brand. It's, you know, if I say Metallica, people know Metallica. Even if they've never heard of Metallica, they might recognize the name somewhere. They might have heard it somewhere along the line. You know, that's brand recognition. You know, it's because it's drilled and it's everywhere, you know, and that's what you got to do. You got to be everywhere you possibly can be. You know, that's the best advice I can give, really.
I think I know what you're talking about with the billboard, too, because I think I've seen, like, some of those along the highway saying, like, write a billboard, contact this number, and they'll be like, they'll just put whatever you want up there, to be honest, too. So I think I know what you're talking about. That would be interesting.
Advertising is probably the most important part about growth.
Very much for any business, really, when you think about it. I mean, that's what they spend most of their money on.
Yeah. Yeah. I you know, and sometimes you're gonna run into what is like a loss scenario where, you know, you're not going to make any money off of doing this, but it's a promotional thing to do. You know, like giving away free shirts. going to other people's shows to support them and buy up all their stuff because, somewhere down the line, maybe they'll remember you. And when you have stuff for sale, maybe they'll buy it too. Supporting everybody else is just as important as advertising yourself too.
Absolutely. All right. Sounds good. And let's jump to the fun questions right now. Ready?
Uh-huh.
All right. So I guess we'll start with the drinking one first. So I guess what's your favorite alcoholic drink and non-alcoholic drink?
Well, I do not drink alcohol if I can help it. But I guess beer in general, as long as it's not an IPA, is probably my favorite alcohol drink. And coffee is my favorite drink other than that. So anything brewed, like tea, coffee, beer, yeah, I have a taste for brewed things.
I would say I agree with you with the IPA because, I've tried it twice. Each time it's always soured my mood afterwards. So
yeah, I don't know why they get creative and put like orange peels in it. I don't get it. Not all of it's got it, but like some of it do. It's like some things don't need to be in drinks.
Sometimes just the simple
the hops and barley.
Hops and barley. Yeah, I was trying to remember what they all put in everything too.
If you got something that works, stick with it.
Absolutely. So just keep it simple. I mean, sometimes just simple beer is all you need. So that's all good. All right. And what's your favorite food?
Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. That's gotta be my favorite. That's like my breakfast staple. It's every day. Like, gotta have it.
I mean, I used to eat that like a religion back in the day when it was obviously as a kid's lunch whenever you took it on field trips or just in general lunches too. So I appreciate actually cut back on it.
Got to be my favorite thing. Like I like all food, but that's got to be the one thing that there's got to be peanut butter, bread, jelly in the house. Got to be all the time.
Don't get in this way. Sorry, don't get in the way of this guy's peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Whoever he wants to have one.
Yeah, I take that pretty seriously. I gotta have it.
Somebody tells me to go rabbit as soon as you see like one on the table. They just go wow, that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway. Actually, what sort of jelly do you like? Is it the grape or the raspberry?
Specifically, grape jelly, and occasionally I'll switch that out with strawberry preserve. But it's got to be preserved.
Sounds pretty good. Actually, I was thinking of the grape jelly. Oh shoot, who is? I can always picture the brand name, but who's on the brand name of some of the biggest jellies you know?
Smuckers.
I think it was Smuckers. I think you're right. I think it was Smuckers. So we'll leave it at that, but we'll see what people say in the comments about it. So everybody let us know in the comments about what sort of big brand jellies there are out there. All right. And next one, what is your favorite movie?
Well, my favorite movie of all time would have to be the Kentucky Fried Movie.
We'll say, do you want to elaborate a little bit more? Because I don't think I heard about that one. What's it about?
It's kind of like a movie based on what would have been like Saturday Night Live skits. I think the whole movie is just kind of a bunch of small skits put together. The Bruce Lee spoof in it, I think, has got to be my favorite of all time. It's something I fell in love with as a kid, and still to this day, it's like the best, most creative, strangest, most obscene, dumbest movie I've ever seen in my life. So yeah, it's got to be my favorite.
I'd say the one I remember reading something was like talking about how the Kentucky Derby is like decadent and depraved. I forget the author's name, but he wrote Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and he wrote about this whole thing with the Kentucky Derby, which it sounded like kind of like a news article when you're reading it. But of course, he throws in a good amount of profanity and stuff like that here and there too. So that's kind of like what it reminded me of too. So I don't know if you ever read Fear and Loathing or any of his stories.
Unfortunately, no. I've been meaning to at least watch the movie. But it's just, I don't like I said, I get like 4 hours or so, and 4 times a day to actually do anything. So like, if I got to put a movie in there, I got to make sure I got everything done for the week first. Boy, that hardly ever happens.
I'm gonna say that's probably the year-end thing you'll do at the end is watch a movie before you jump into the next year. So
yeah, probably downtime's just as important as work time. So I try to schedule the same amount of downtime as work time, but then that's usually taken up by sleep. So sometimes it doesn't work out.
I see. All right, and the last of the fun questions: what's currently your favorite song?
Favorite song currently? There's a lot. You know, being that I've been exposed this year to like the independent community, like it's definitely a song in the independent community of musicians. It's not nothing mainstream can compare to the amount of talent that's out there, honestly. And it's hard to pick a favorite because man, there's so many good ones. I'm gonna say Steam Slicer's "Conceive." I think it is on their new album that just came out. It's got to be probably one of my favorites. And a very close tie to that would be "Flowers on the Grave's" "Titan" is another one that man I just can't get enough of it. You know, both those songs, and they're both kind of written in kind of they both kind of shadow something that like Tool would write in a sense, or a Perfect Circle would write. You know, something that's, you know, it's got, you know, a close riffage or drum work or something like that that's kind of close to that in my opinion. So those are probably my 2 favorite songs right now. I don't really have one I can pick. I mean, there's a lot out there. I mean, I like everything everybody does. Like, I'm not picky about music at all. I mean, if you write country, I'm going to listen to it, because if you follow us, I'm going to give you the eartime you deserve, and I'm going to put you on a playlist. I'm going to advertise you as much as possible to everybody I know. You know, and it's hard to do when you got thousands to do it for, but I try to do it for everybody. I really do. Kind of an idea I was throwing out there, maybe end up putting a YouTube review video together for artists that aren't on Spotify, so that I can try to get their stuff heard too. It's just an idea I was throwing around. I'm not really committed to it. Haven't really formatted anything for it yet. Just would love to be able to give the people that aren't on Spotify a shout out too. I just haven't quite figured out a great way to do it yet.
Good, man. And so that's good. Some good work you're doing right there. So make sure you keep it up too. I would say I did interview Steam Slicer actually, and his interview is going to come out in December. But I haven't got a Titan yet, so I think Titan will have to put on the list. Maybe reach out to him in December and see what happens then. So make sure I'll stay tuned for that. So.
Yeah, he just messaged me last night too, because I ordered some CDs from him, and he's like, "Hey, did they come in yet?" And I'm like, "No, not yet, but you know, they'll get here. They're coming from Germany. You know, it's gonna take some time."
Yeah, it takes some time to ship a global product from one end of the country to the other. It's not like they always fly it over too. So I mean, we gotta sometimes deal with shipment, that sort of thing too.
Yeah, so I was like, "Yeah, I'm grateful that he keeps in touch. You know, it's pretty awesome." Love that community and the ability to talk to people, you know. Even though 90% of the messages I get are from spammers or people trying to get more money out of us, you know, it's like, no. You know, I got my own marketing scheme, and I'm not going to break any rules or contracts I have with the distributors I have in order to get more of something that, you know, is going to happen naturally on its own anyway.
Yeah, don't even get me started on those ones. So.
Yeah. I don't need inflated numbers. I just, you know, if you listen to the stuff, great. If you're not into metal and you're not listening to stuff, that's fine too. You know, the performance on that album depends on how much more work I do on Nonferrous. And so far, it's exceeded my expectations. So yes, there's a second album coming out. yeah, I'm going to put more time into it. And it's the same with the YouTube channel. If it doesn't grow to certain percentages, eventually I'll just stop filming the projects I do and just do the project. Like, it just depends on, if it's making a difference, I'll put more effort into it. If it's not, I'll move on and do other stuff. Fine. I'm not super committed to one thing ever. So I'm glad the Nonferrous thing is, we're almost to 1,000 streams in 2 years. And to me, that's amazing, really. Like, I can't believe people like and listen to our stuff. Like, it just blows my mind. And when the new stuff comes out, I'm sure I'll be mind blown on that too. Like, I'm pretty sure every independent artist out there feels the same way. You put
It's an
something,
exciting journey, to say the least. Yeah.
yeah, you put something out, and then all of a sudden, like 1,000 people listen to it. You're like, ooh, that's cool. Wow. I'm happy if we get one listener a month.
Yep. So
thank you, everyone that listens. Really, seriously.
That's good to hear. And keep it up. And can't wait to see what new material you come out with in either 2024 or somewhere beyond, whenever you eventually get around to it too. So I'll leave it up to you.
Yeah. It's definitely, thanks to, the independent music community, there's definitely a lot of motivation to move forward. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
All right, sounds good. All right, so Dave, we're down to the last question right here. Before we jump into that, did you have any questions for me or any final words you want to say before we jump into it?
No, I'm good.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so the last question kind of goes like this. Given what COVID has done, obviously you've been pretty blessed to not been affected by it by any way. It seems to have given you some sort of blessing with being able to focus on Nonferrous. But what sort of message of hope would you give to musicians and people out there as we try to move forward in a post-COVID world?
I've seen. So I've been to a lot of shows recently, and occasionally there'll be a crowd, and occasionally there'll be just the band members there as the only people at the shows. Besides us, we're not. Me and my wife, we try to go to as many local shows as we can and support local artists. I'm gonna say words of hope. The music industry changes a lot. Like, we can't expect to do things that 10 years ago were. And things are different. And who knows what's going to stick. I think currently I saw Machine Head was putting on like an online live Facebook show about every Friday. And it's just them jamming in like their living room. And maybe that's what the future of what music's going to be. Maybe not. But it'd be awesome and save you money if you did jam in your living room with everybody else and put it out there for the world to see. And based on its popularity, see if you can't charge some money for it. I mean, maybe that's the next step. You never know. I don't know. Just try new things. Always try new things. And just, whatever's bringing results, keep with it. Whatever's not, move on and try other new things. But, never be afraid to try something new. And don't ever think that you're not important to somebody enough that they'll pay for what you have. Hold yourself in a certain value. And don't compromise your value. I think is the best. I don't know. I've got a lot to say, but I can never get everything out right away.
That's spoken like a true prodigy, nonetheless. So that's all good. So
some bands are giving their albums out for free. I mean, come on, man. I would pay for it. I would definitely pay for it. I don't necessarily like that you're giving your stuff out for free.
There should be like a competition then when you try to do something like that too. Like, I wasn't trying to think like those fundraisers or anything like that, like how much you could raise, but just try like some sort of competition.
Yeah, like
something like that.
Just because you're in the lowest price option doesn't mean people are going to pick you. Sometimes you gotta have enough self value to say I'm worth something, and like I'll buy your stuff if I got money. If I don't, I can't. But I got to spread it between the people that are selling stuff that follow me, and then the bands that are playing live that follow me. And I try to buy every show we go to. I try to buy everybody's merch. I try to. I make sure I got money set aside for that for every show we go to make sure every band gets some support. Because we might be the only ones there that aren't other bands, and we do our best to support every local band we have around here. And I'm always trying to reach out to bigger bands out there and saying, hey, have you heard of these guys? A lot of them never get back a hold of me. And with reason, their messengers are probably full of scammers too. They're probably not responding to any. I got to figure out a new way to get a hold of them.
Yeah, you can't do the word of mouth anymore like what you used to. So we'll have to see what happens. But Dave, we reached the end of my podcast right here. We talked for a good almost hour and 50 minutes, to be honest, actually. But thank you so much again for coming on. Did you have any final words or any shout outs you want to say before we close?
No, just support local, man. If you're expecting support other people as much as you would expect it back. And you might see it. But if you don't support local bands, don't expect the support back. That's probably the most important thing for all the bands that are out there.
Absolutely. All right. And how else can people reach you? Are you just on Facebook and your website, or I guess what other social media do you use outside YouTube too?
The YouTube channel is kind of outdated. I haven't really put anything out new. That's kind of why I wanted to do that video. You can get a hold of us on Facebook. I just made a post today with a message link that you can send me a message with, because apparently Facebook lost our message button to a lot of us. The scammers can find it, but no one else can. So you can feel free to message me like as much as you want. Like I'll talk to you. Like I'm friendly. Like I'm not going to try to sell you nothing. I don't want, I probably want your merch more than I want, your money. I don't necessarily like things for free. Occasionally we get them, and that's fine. But, I talk to me. I like to, get in touch and actually talk to people, especially other bands. I mean, I feel like a little ant sometimes as on there compared to like some of the music and bands that are out there. And I love it when we communicate and we can talk like friends and we can become friends. That's the part of local music that I like better than going to bigger shows, is that I actually get to hang out with the band. So yeah, it's that one-on-one, the closeness that you can get. You get to learn their names without having to look them up online.
All right, sounds good. So everyone, today my guest was David Compton, hailing from Ohio right here. He's part of the band Nonferrous, so make sure you go check out his music on Spotify. Go hit him up on the socials and go subscribe to his channel. This guy's making wonders out there, and he's a good man in this drum. I was going to say drum community, but no, in this indie community. So there we go. All right, sounds good. So Dave, thank you again so much again for coming on. Stay safe. Stay tuned, y'all.